All right, so I'm going to do a more personal and sort of soft version of this talk. If you guys want to see the more professional version of this talk, you can go online and just search Agency Comes of Age on YouTube. And the reason why I want to be a little bit more personal about this one is because Phoebe didn't know about my story a little bit, right? So I have an origin story that is not too dissimilar to Nathan's. I was activated to thinking about politics and the horrible direction some things have taken since then. I was 13 years old. I was at a history lesson, and it was interrupted, and the teacher told us to go downstairs. And there was a big TV in this like playground of my school, and there was the building on fire, and that one plane coming. And I woke up that day. That history was not dead, and history was being written, and that we should do something. That was my moment of waking up. 10 years later, we got a global call to join a global movement where we would mutualize public space to create communities of practice and open spaces of discussion. That was Occupy Movement. And I was one of the first responders in Brazil when we set up a big square camp. I remember late nights of operational security, keeping the cops away. I remember getting food intoxication from a Plaza hot dog that didn't sit really well. Took me out of action for a week. I remember governmental oppression. I remember 2013. I remember when I learned how to avoid tear gas, how to take care of rubber bullet damage. I remember finding out how hard it is to break a bank's window. It's really hard. It takes a lot of collaboration. And how effective burning trash can be to delay oppressive behavior. And I remember trying to paint a painting show that was crowdfunded and collectively curated. And so I put a website up that had a question. What is the most intimate experience you've ever had that you would tell a complete stranger? And I got 150 answers, and I painted 9 paintings. But I was doing this while we were fighting this fight. And it was really hard to navigate. So I was late to the protest, and I arrived from behind the cops at this giant battle that's still known to this day as the Battle of Presidente Vargas, which happens to be the same street where the carnival parades walk by in Rio. And I saw the size of the state machinery, and I realized that direct action, the way that we were doing back then, was not going to work. It's not going to work. And that changed my practice forever. And that's when I became a facilitator, and I went after training in holistic science and Goethean phenomenology, which happens to be, Phoebe is like the only person I know in my life right now that has the same training. And that changed everything. This is all connected because I had to move out of my country. I melted my life away. I made a big party where my friends could buy my things. And I came here with 2 bags, and it's been 3 years, and it was really hard to find work. It's really hard to actually work with what I do. And then somebody from Brazil actually, that used to come to my workshops there and who knew my struggles, etc., messaged me and said, yo, I'm working for this company now that has this thing called a DAO. I was like, what? I was like, yeah. I was like, tech? Fuck that. And then eventually I swallowed it, and I went and I read all the things, and I joined Genesis Alpha DAO and understood how to vote, how to stake, how the things are happening. I feel the same push and pull of need of furthering discussions like the one that Stock was like raising now. And I'm at your service. I already sent you a message. And the importance of design and good story wrapping for these movements. So that's what I do for DAOstack. I am there to annoy the fuck out of the team, to do things with a little bit more joy, a little bit more of a human touch, and an invitation for ownership and agency that goes beyond our most direct needs. But I'm really good at addressing it as our most direct needs. So don't tell my bosses. They are not here. And let's keep thinking that it's marketing, but it's not. So this is how alchemy looks like. I'm just going to skip over. I would definitely recommend that everybody take the time to understand Genesis, because it's money that's being put every week into funding the anti-rival commons. So independently of your opinion of anything, just go there, propose your work, take that money, build something beautiful, share it with the world. Come on, man. Um, woo! And it is a political process. I was really touched by that one comment you made. I had no idea that it was so political. It's like, man, it's a voting process. It's 100% political. And I think that's exactly what we need. We need to become 100% political. You know, we need to go, propose, defend, activate, mobilize, educate, and get shit done. And I did this for 5 months. The DAO was my boss for 5 months. I had no official job. I paid all my bills through the DAO. I did paintings, videos, I did raffles, I did workshops, I created the DAO Canvas methodology, all before I had the job, right? I got the job when I did the book, which is, I would recommend getting this book. It's a good piece of anti-rival commons because of the curation. Half of the articles, Nathan is in there, Stacko is in there, and half of the articles were available before, but just putting them together in the way that it's put together was worth it, right? So I'm not happy with the way we understand DAOs, and I'm not happy how we talk about DAOs. I think the name sucks. I don't know if anybody else agrees with me, yeah? So I think this name sucks for a few reasons, right? Let's have a tentative breakdown of the DAO name containing a few grains of salt, because for me it's like D for debate, all right? Because decentralization, my ass. All right? Nathan did a really great job at explaining this, and I actually am going to go kind of faster. I wanted to give this like personal side of my journey, and then I'm going to go kind of faster so we can have more of a discussion than a presentation, right? But I don't think we actually, like every act of decentralization creates a counterpulse of centralization down the road. I think Nathan's work is really good at showing this, especially that one article that we have. And it's really easy to get lost in the sauce, right? So I think we should like have strong feet on the ground and measure through action instead of ideas, because it's really easy to get lost in the sauce of this like decentralized thing. I haven't met a decentralized system yet. So when you found one, tell me, because I haven't found it, right? And fuck that, autonomous. Like there's no chance that anything is actually autonomous, right? I think that the illusion of separation is one of the most dangerous phenomena that are. You are dependent in other people. All autonomy that you ever imagine that you have is illusory, and nothing is truly automated. Because if there was an action in the past that automated it, right? And that comes from a historical nexus of decisions that are being made, and they're biased, and they have problems. So just because it's automated today doesn't mean that we have to stop talking about it, and why, and how, and who automated it, right? So these are things that are important to discuss and to bring up. And even the notion of an organization, like when we're talking about federation, or how we say it in DAOstack, we say fractal federation, right? The idea of a fractal federation of communities and organizations that have a stake in each other and create a chain link that looks a lot more, or not even a chain link, it creates a rhizomatic structure, it creates a mycelium, right? It's a fungus-like thing, right? So I think the mycelium is already there, it's here, and the DAOs are like the mushroom that sprouts. And it sprouts, it spores, and it dies, and it's fine. We don't have to create these groups that aim to exist forever. We have to think like organisms. So this fractal update of the way of thinking about the things we put out and the way they happen in the world, this update is a challenge, right? 1 minute. So let's just stop. The whole thing is, I'm trying to steward this idea of a Promethean swarm, right? This is the first time that we are on the edge of a possibility of an actual revolution, because no revolution has ever happened. The structure of society has remained the same, 115, 84%. Like this structure has been pervasive over the 60,000 years of human culture since the invention of agriculture, right? Now we have a small chance of a truly Promethean act. Prometheus is the creator of humanity in Greek mythology, and his job was, once Zeus was like, oh, they're getting sassy. Let's take fire away from them. Let's see how they fare. And Prometheus was the Titan who betrayed the Titan movement and helped Zeus come to power. And he's like, no, I'm not putting up with that. So there was a party, all the gods were kind of drunk, and then Prometheus like took a little piece of fire, hid it inside a stalk of fennel, came down and gave it back to humanity. And that is like the primeval act of rebellion against centralized authority. That's the guy. He got punished, right? And then he got his liver eaten by an eagle forever. And the funny thing is, there is a third part of the story where Prometheus is unchained, but that is missing. That wasn't recovered throughout the times. It was lost. We have to write it. So let's unchain Prometheus, and we are it. And now, yeah, questions?
Well, you asked for leaderless content, but canonizer content is completely leaderless, self-organizing, everything.
Cool. I'm going to check it out. I haven't been there yet. But the question I would like to ask, instead of getting questions from you guys, I want to ask you a question. Like, what are the bridges that we're missing out on building, and how we're going to build them across projects, right? Across our current dreams, across the beefs and the things. Like, do you have an idea, Phoebe?
Do I have an idea of how to build bridges between projects? More bridge builder people like ourselves? Woo! Interoperable economies. Joseph, any ideas? Fellowships, perhaps?
Bridge people between humans first, and then organizations come later.
Create a community gathering all communities, talking about DGOV things, and we can gather and talk about these topics like we're doing now. I think that's a good start.
Also, actually having training or awareness in communicating in open ways, like learning to communicate to people not from your own discipline, very important.
Well, with Canonizer, it's finding out concisely and quantitatively what everyone wants. Everyone has a voice. You join a camp, you gain control of the camp. No one can take that away from you.
And complementary to that, also the qualitative aspect, apart from the quantized aspect, also the qualitative aspect, the care work, and it's messy. You figure it out. No one here can give a recipe for what's going to happen. You have to see it happening and recognize it for what it is.
I think it's about finding a common purpose between different organizations or different purpose-driven communities, and build a structure that build a DAO, that kind of that DAO or DAOs or whatever kind of organizations.
Yeah, I would be interested in creating a curriculum for unlearning a lot of stuff that we grew up with, and really starting to engage with that.
Yeah, the same, like being conscious about our biases and being open to new stuff.
Well, one bias I have, I actually didn't have this in mind when I set the question around, but I just realized that we create a ridiculous, I'm even going to sit down. We create a lot of like broadcasting spaces, but we don't create listening spaces in the same proportion. So I would say listening spaces as well, like listening, like empty spaces for this, you know, like spaces of pregnant emptiness.
Pregnant emptiness. I have a question. Are you still taking questions? So I feel like you kind of answered your own question a little bit, where you just said like decentralization doesn't exist. Yeah, and I'm just wondering, like, could you comment on this? That how do you do decentralization in a society where it's directly incentivized to centralize? Like, have you thought about this?
That is one that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, and I think we need also building on the empty pregnant emptiness, is that having spaces that don't have a really functional projects of power that can go really big, but they have sustainable systems of survival, like the empty house that we had in Brazil. We had an empty house where everyone was the same, and there was a little bit of tyranny of structurelessness, but it was actually like being corroded as we went. So the fact that that house was not going to make anyone rich, that house was not going to make anyone famous, the fact that there was no project of power to corrupt, to get excited about, created a space where care work was the only work. And caring for space became caring for each other. And then when the house was destroyed by the powers of government, going like, whoa, why 1,000 people have a key to this house? And why like there's no business model, what the fuck's going on here? They gave us a prize and they gave us a fine in the same month. And then the neighbors, who were like of older age and had a different project for the space where the house was happening, threatened to sue us. And they found us the only weak link, because there gotta be somebody with a name in the contract. And of course, there was the rich dad of somebody. And the rich dad was very appreciative of the work, but he was, guys, I love you, but I'm not going to court over this. And then the house was destroyed. We had the last meeting with 70 people sitting around a hall, where just a giant pity party. We were crying our fucking eyes out, right? And then 2 weeks later, I came to Germany to represent the Dad project at a art residency thing, and that's how this journey connects. I skipped over the house when I presented myself, but that's, I think, empty spaces that are pregnant with potential, but their true desire is just to be a garden bed that has no project. We need more of this. That's what I call a listening space, like a garden bed that has no project, and it's a silly thing. It's from a capitalist perspective, is a childish thing. But I swear to God, that's where you're gonna fall in love with someone. It's not at the fucking company, you know. That's kind of what I have to say. And I really appreciate having this small room when I feel comfortable of cursing as much as I need to. Thank you.
Yay.